Your baby's mind is growing even before they arrive. The more you talk and sing and play, the more their mind will thrive. You gotta talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby, make out you're a lion. Talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby. Your words will grow their mind.
Well, hello and welcome to the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast. We'll bring you the experts who can decode what's happening in your baby's brain and give you practical tips on how to nurture their development and help them to thrive. And we promise to try and do this without adding to the ever-increasing parental load. I'm Kate, I'm a mum of two, and I've also been passionate about early childhood policy for 20 years now.
And I'm Amelia. I'm a mum to Grace, who's 5, and Ted, who's 1. I'm a journalist. And at the weekend, I set a new record for hitting refresh on the washing machine. So real hot mess stuff over here, but we're working on it.
Congratulations. You must be very proud.
Okay, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about play, and specifically we're talking about risky play, why our kids need a few scrapes and bumps. Now, as you know from our jingle, which I hope by now is stuck in all of your minds, Words Grow Minds is based around encouraging parents to talk, play, read and sing with their baby every day. And interestingly, I think that it's play that is one that parents actually find really hard at times. There was a big study by the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne a few years ago that found 94% of parents surveyed agreed that play is important for brain development and physical well-being, but a staggering 61% often find it difficult to do or indeed even boring. 58% would like to know more about how to play with their little ones.
And you can understand where those stats come from. I mean, you've got this mental load. I've got to get to work at this time. I've got to do this. The lunchbox needs to be packed. You're just not in that headspace to play, but also you don't want your kids to necessarily strangle themselves or they're off to their own devices as well. It's a hard balance to strike, and, you know, it seems silly that we almost have to decode something that's so simple in a way.
Well, it is, but it doesn't come naturally to everyone. I know we've heard from parents that say, I know I meant to play, but I can't remember what to do. If I play one more game of peekaboo, I think I'm going to be sick myself. So we want to talk about tips, but also we really want to talk about risky play.
Now, this brings us to our next guest, Kate.
It does. I'm really excited that helping us delve into the world of play, and particularly risky play, is one of Australia's most trusted, respected and famous parenting experts, Dr Justin Coulson.
Now, you'll know Justin from his TV show Parental Guidance and as the founder of happyfamilies.com.au. He holds a PhD in psychology and over the past decade has helped countless families with his 9 books about raising children and his hundreds of media appearances here in Australia and overseas. Justin also hosts the top-rated Happy Families podcast for time-poor parents who just want answers now. And he and his wife Kylie have been married since the late 90s and are the parents of 6 daughters and the grandparents of 1 granddaughter.
Lucky family. Dr Justin Coulson, thank you so much for being with us and welcome to Words Grow Minds. We want to get straight into it. So I want to start by asking you about the importance of kids' play and your work in it. Just explain to us, why is play so important?
Yeah, let's play with this a little bit, Kate, play with the ideas. See what I did there? I just had to go there straight away. So essentially play is, I can't even remember who said it. There's a quote that's been around for decades that play is the work of childhood. As parents, we want our children to thrive. We want them to succeed. And as a result of our desire for them to succeed, we really push way too soon for them to start doing all of the academic things, the learning things, the things that we think are going to help them to be able to afford that McMansion in Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne one day, and maybe even a nice holiday and a car to go with it. Like that's our goal, raise successful adults. And therefore we continually push the wrong sort of stuff onto them with the very best of intentions. And what they really need to do is play. Why do they need to play? Well, because play is the stuff that helps them to figure out how the world works. They get to figure out relationships. They get to figure out how their body moves. They get to use their mind. They get to solve problems. Play gives them access to every resource that matters, so long as it's the kind of play that is open-ended and ideally outside. Right, so if they're going to sit down on the carpet in the living room and play on a device, they're simply not going to have the same experiences that they will if they're outside with 2 or 3 friends and they're climbing on equipment, or they're playing mums and dads or doctors and nurses or teachers and schools, and do you know what I mean? Like the social element that there is so profoundly important. And I guess to extend that straight into the adult world, a few years ago, Google did this big project. They called it Project Aristotle. They were looking at the highest performing teams. They wanted to know what it was that underpinned the very best performance in their organization. I mean, Google, world leading, there's no bigger, better company by any measure of success, really, maybe even in the history of the world. And what they discovered was that it wasn't the Harvard or Stanford or MIT grads that were the most successful. It wasn't the people with the highest IQ that made teams most successful. The teams that were most successful were the teams that had people in them who knew how to create a wonderful social dynamic where everyone felt included, felt like they were contributing, felt like they could raise their hand and say, actually, we have a problem here and I don't like this. It was the people who had people skills, the soft skills, the people who knew how to play with ideas. And I don't know, I mean, Kate, Amelia, the great irony here is that we discount those things when we take play away and we put kids into structured environments or we protect them from everything that might hurt them.
So breaking it down, what do you think good play looks like, especially in that age group of babies and toddlers?
Okay, so for our younger children, I hate saying this because as kids get older, I want them to have as much freedom as possible. But the reality is if they're young, they need to have adult supervision. And it's developmentally appropriate that there are adults in the room. My preference, though, and again, you've got to consider the context, is that we act like, I'm going to call it pot plant parents. So in every room, we
need a glass of water.
Maybe, but the pot plant sits in the corner and it's always there if you want to look at something nice and green. But other than that, it doesn't really do much. It just makes the room feel, I don't know, nicer, I guess. And that's what I think the role of parents really should be. Create a room where we're there. If we need to intervene, we can. But other than that, the kids are figuring things out for themselves. That would be the first thing I'd say. Parental supervision and monitoring, but minimal and developmentally appropriate. The second thing, they need other people. They absolutely need other people. I think it was you, Kate, in the intro, you mentioned peekaboo. Peekaboo is so much fun if you have a 6-month-old or a 12-month-old. But peekaboo loses its delight for both us and our children by the time the kids get to a point where it is predictable and there's no more risk or excitement or trepidation or uncertainty around it. And so the thing with play is that it stops being fun when it starts becoming predictable. Therefore, our kids need an environment where the unpredictable can and potentially will happen. I get myself in trouble every time I say this, and I'm going to say it anyway.
Brace ourselves.
I believe that every single week our children should be engaged in at least one activity, but preferably many more, where they could find themselves in hospital if things go wrong.
Jeez, okay.
Okay, we're going to need some sort of asterisks and some legal advice at the end of this podcast. Before we get into risky play, can I just ask you, I mean, you're talking about peekaboo and it's fun until it gets boring. And this is the thing, like what we've heard from parents is that they've run out of ideas. Like one of the most popular things the Words Grow Mind program has given out is a set of cards for parents, and each one has a really simple tip on a way that you can play and interact with your child without spending money, without having to buy fancy equipment. Do you have tips for, like we think it comes naturally. You become a parent and all of a sudden you become an early childhood entertainer, and it doesn't come naturally for everyone. So how do you get into that space?
So this is going to sound really unfair, but it's outside and it's other people. That's kind of it. So outside, children learn to do a whole lot of things that are hard. Outside, children have a never-ending environment of possibility. Outside, children bump into, I mean, especially with this age group that we're talking about. You go to, I'm going to say the local park. I've got big problems with the local park in terms of the equipment and what children have access to there. It's absolutely pathetic. Nevertheless, I'm going to use the local park because it is accessible for most people. I reckon take your own equipment, take a ball, take a frisbee, take a rope, take things to throw. But local park, outside, trees ideally. And they bump into other kids. So there's the other people thing taken care of. And so do you as a parent. And have you noticed, as parents, it's really, really easy to make friends with other parents when you've got young kids. Something happens as the kids get older. I mean, I've got 3 in their 20s now, a couple of teenagers. My youngest is about to turn 11. And when you've got older kids, the parents just become much less interested in the other parents. But when you're walking around with a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4-year-old, parents sort of give each other those knowing smiles and say, you're here for the first time.
And we need tips. You need to find people that are in the trenches at the same time, yeah.
So that solves our other people issue as well. And for the most part, humans, because we are ultra social, as much as we might sigh and go, oh, gee, I'm going to have another meaningless conversation with another parent that I'm never going to see again, there's something that's delightful about having these mini connections, these little contacts. There's something actually profound about it. Research shows that you don't have to know somebody's name or have a deep and meaningful conversation to really enjoy this sociality of being together. So the kids get to play with another kid. We get to talk to another adult about, gee, it's hard raising kids, isn't it? And aren't you exhausted? We get to have that little moment of empathy with somebody. And the kids are outdoors, which means that they've got this open-ended opportunity to play, which becomes the greatest gift we can give them. It's hard to do it when it's winter time or when the days are short. It's hard to do it when you're working 2 jobs and double income sort of situation because you can't afford the mortgage. But yet the more we can do those 2 things, the more problems we solve. And it's actually good for us. Put the phone away and go outside and touch the grass with the kids.
Justin, I read a stat the other day that this generation of parents is actually more present and does try to connect more with their kids than, say, their parents did with them. Do you find that in your research and is it just a case of perhaps we all just need to loosen up and stop trying so hard?
Yeah, there's a bit of nuance here, and I think that it's worth touching on. We are more invested in our children than ever before, and we are more involved in the supervision and monitoring of our children. We're also more involved in encouraging them into structured activities. So that research therefore supports, those comments support what that research highlights. But there are a whole lot of downsides to that we can discuss shortly. Unfortunately, another set of realities is that we are also more time poor, more flustered, more engaged in our screens, and more unable to be really present, even though we're with our kids. And we're also less likely to get involved in the unstructured, open-ended play that they need so much. We're really into, I guess, trying to help our kids along because we want them to have the best life possible. And let's face it, everybody wants their kid to be the ducks of preschool, right?
You know us so well. We've only just met.
Yeah. I guess this is a good segue into the case for risky play, which you are a big advocate for. You know, the unstructured. How does risky play look to you in a safe way?
Yeah, so I've got a document here that I'm working on at the moment. It's kind of hard to see because of the screen fade, but it's a systematic review. What is the relationship between risky outdoor play and health in children from the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health? I've literally been going through this over the last couple of weeks, and because I'm writing about it. So risky play. Back when you and I were kids, we didn't actually call it risky play. We had another word for it. Play.
It's so true. It's so true.
And I did a podcast myself on this just recently, and I asked my wife, when you were a kid, like I'm talking young primary school or even preschool, what was your favorite piece of playground equipment? And she looked at me and smiled and she said, the tree. And I'm like, well, it's not even equipment, right? Like, but how much fun, when you're with your friends, how much fun is climbing the tree as high as you're willing to go? Or how much fun is going on that bushwalk and walking out along the ledge above the water with only 1 or 2 centimeters between the edge of your foot and a fall down onto the rocks below, or climbing up that rock wall, or walking along the pathway and jumping up onto that person's brick fence that's about waist high and holding mum or dad's hand as you walk along the fence. Those things, the thing with play is that it ceases to be play when we eliminate the risk or the unpredictability. It's fun precisely because it gets your heart going. It's fun precisely because you don't quite know what's going to happen next. That's why the social play has an element of risk, because you don't know if the person who's playing the mummy or the daddy or the doctor or the nurse, you don't know whether they're going to suggest, well, it's time for an operation. Lay down. Let's open up your stomach. Like, you don't know. And of course, they're only 3 and they're using a stick and you've got clothing on and no one's going to come to any harm. But there's that element of social risk. Physical risk is exactly the same. We want our kids to be doing it because they learn so much more as a result. So what does it look like in a developmentally appropriate way when we're talking about young children? It means that we're present. And if something were to happen, we can be to them quickly. Now, obviously, we're not going to encourage them to walk to the edge of the cliff if the cliff is 30 meters high. I mean, common sense applies here. We have to be the prefrontal cortex because the kids don't have one. They just don't. But our job is to let them explore as much as they want to. And the beauty of this is they discover really, really quickly where the limits are. See, what taking these risks does is it builds a sense of competence, capacity, capability. And as kids feel increasingly increasingly capable and competent, like they have mastery over their environment, then they start to say, okay, well, what's next? And I get that some parents are saying, but I don't want them to do the next thing. I don't even want them to do this thing right now. And yet, isn't that what we have to do in our lives?
Yes.
Like, we've got to leave the house. We've got to drive a car. We've got to cross that rickety bridge, metaphorically, whatever it is, sometimes every single day. And it's by, imagine a painter, right? You look at a brand new sheet of gyprock that's just been sanded and it's ready for painting. You put that undercoat on and it looks terrible. And then you put the first coat on and you go, yeah, I can see what this might look like. And then you do the second coat and you go, now I see it. And then maybe if you're really spending the big bucks, you do the third coat as well. and layer by layer by layer, you start to get this, I'm going to call it a mountain of evidence that supports your ability to do hard things. And the sooner we start to help our children to recognize that they can do hard things, they can cut with a knife in the kitchen. They can use the fry pan to fry an egg at the age of 4. They can put the sharp knives away as they unpack the dishwasher. They can hammer a nail with dad in the garage. When they start to discover they can do these things, and yeah, they might bleed. They might even break something now and then. I don't want to minimize the fact that this is challenging, but it's not the end of the world. And what they learn from it is incredibly valuable.
Okay, Justin, we're going to take a quick break here. You've given us so much to think about. I need some time to pick up all the pennies that have just dropped and fallen onto the floor. But we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some of the real practical, basic ways that you love seeing parents encouraging risky play. I'm a bit nervous thinking about it, but we're on to a good thing. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you, Justin, and we'll be back shortly.
Your baby's mind is growing even before they arrive. The more you talk and sing and play, the more their mind will thrive.
Every time you interact with your child, you're helping grow their mind. For more information, visit wordsgrowminds.org.au.
All right. Well, welcome back. So let's talk about what is risky play and what is not, and what precautions is it good that we keep following?
Okay, so the Canadian Psychological Society probably has the most comprehensive overview of what risky play is, and that's what I tend to lean on when I'm talking about it. Risky play is the kind of play that is thrilling and exciting and can include the possibility of physical injury. Types of risky play include play at height, speed, near dangerous elements like water or fire, with dangerous tools, rough and tumble play, like play fighting, and where there is the potential for disappearing or getting lost.
Okay. Steal yourself.
I can hear I can feel the anxiety building.
Yes. I'm about to climb under the table. This is terrifying.
But what is it not just?
Developmentally appropriate, okay? Like, you're not going to say to your 3-year-old, just run down to the corner store, the little IGA on the supermarket or the Drake's or whatever it is that you've got down there. Just run down there and I want you to grab 3 litres of milk, a couple of loaves of bread and a chicken for me and bring it home. We're not in Japan. We don't have that culture. That would not be appropriate. Developmentally, we don't ask that of our kids. But what we do is we allow them to climb to high places. Like my youngest is about to turn 11. But for the last couple of years, she's been fascinated with climbing up onto the roof of our house. She's figured out a way where she can climb up on the fence, and then she can climb onto the roof of the garden shed, and then she can get up onto the roof of the house. And I don't like her being up there for obvious reasons. It's dangerous, but it thrills her, and she feels in control. And I've watched what she's doing, and she's figuring out where the boundaries are. You know, the great irony? Maybe this might be useful. So your standard kit playground equipment. In the research literature, there are some academics who call it KFC equipment. Why? Kit, fence, carpet. KFC. And you get that in all your preschools, you get it in a lot of schools, you certainly get it on the playgrounds. Here's what they've found. They've found that it's rated as having inferior opportunities for promoting children's emotional, social, physical, and cognitive development. They've found that it has limited appeal and affordance for play. In other words, kids look at it and they go, that's boring. There's nothing exhilarating about it. There's no risk associated with it. I don't want to play on it. You know the greatest irony? The KFC playgrounds, that is the kit fence carpet playgrounds, the ones with the rubber surfaces, you've got an increased risk of fractures when compared to bark or dirt surfaces. What we find is that the kids kind of go, I'm not going to get hurt here because I'm so protected, and therefore they take more risks than they should and they hurt themselves. Whereas if you've got a playground environment that has obvious risks and poses clear threats, the kids perceive that and they ease up on their activity, which means that they're counterintuitively less likely to get injured.
That's wild.
Because they love the risk. It pushes them.
Can I just go back to the issue of very young children though? Like I can accept what you're saying when you're talking about, 10-year-olds going to the skate park or climbing the tree or going mountain bike riding or whatever it might be. But I'm talking about like soft little cushy babies.
And soft little cushy babies like the one I have at home who loves doing a runner. Like I seek out those playgrounds because I just know that for a minute we're playing and you're not going to go out onto the road. But conversely, my 5-year-old hates them.
But how do we? So with young children, we want the benefits of them learning their own capacity, learning where their own boundaries are, engaging in things that are fun and risky and all of that. But when we're talking about very young children, what is the balance? How do we get that balance right?
So stay away from roads.
Trying.
Also seatbelts on and helmets on, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me be really, really clear about this. Risky play is not ignoring evidence-based and mandated safety measures like using a helmet or a car seat or a life jacket on a boat or having let me come back to the stair and safety gates in a second. You know how you stop your kids from going upstairs or downstairs?
I do.
Back to them.
Yep.
Leaving kids unsupervised in a hazardous situation like near a street is obviously not what I'm talking about here. And pushing kids to do things that are beyond their own comfort level, that will only increase their anxiety as well. So we've got to read our kids. Let me give you a really simple example about heights and just a dangerous element. In a home that we used to live in some years ago, we had a staircase that, it was tricky. There were a couple of stairs at the bottom, and there was a ceiling that we had to, for whatever reason, we couldn't have a handrail all the way. So the first 3 or 4 stairs, as you sort of went up and around the corner, there was no handrail. And for a child to fall 4 or maybe 5 stairs, that's a long way. For like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, they're going to hurt themselves. And they were wooden stairs. They were not carpeted. But there was also no easy way for us to put a fence around it. It didn't work because of the setup of the room. It was annoying for us. And we just shrugged our shoulders and said, I guess our daughter is going to have to learn that these stairs are dangerous. And it was fascinating to watch her as she learned to crawl, and then as she learned to walk, and then as she learned to navigate the stairs. She did it in her own time and she figured it out. And she had a couple of tumbles and there was a little bit of blood once or twice, a split lip or whatever, a sore nose. But she figured it out. And what was really fascinating was when she had same age peers come over to play. Kylie, my wife, would have another mum, a couple of mums, and their kids come over to play with our little one. These kids had no concept of what to do on the stairs. And their parents were terrified. Every time they went near the stairs or climbed up the first one of the stairs, they'd run over and pick them up. Whereas for our daughter, she had the experience with it. She'd taken the risks. She'd learned what her limits were, and she'd learned how to navigate that thing. So I know that I keep on veering into the bigger kids because that's what we think of with the bigger risks. But our own home, you've got stairs, you've got a lounge, you've got a coffee table, you've got things, a bed that the kids climb up on or fall off. And as they learn to have those experiences, as we teach them how to clamber up and then slide themselves off, that's when they start to become competent. And then you don't have to buy all those expensive pieces of safety equipment because the kids have learned it.
just to jump in here, talking about the home, do you empathise with or do you think there is still room for risky play? There are a lot of people out there who are in courtyard homes or apartments. How do you move into that territory, especially if you've got, say, a toddler and a newborn who's sleeping half the time? You can't always get out to the park every tick of the clock.
No, you can't. And so if that's the case, you do what you can. I mean, I don't think there's any perfect solutions here, and I'm not going to pretend that everyone's going to be able to go down to the park or go down to the beach or go down to the river or whatever. That's not realistic. So to the degree that you can, you give your children opportunities to chop something up for dinner. Use the knife. Like 3-year-olds can use knives. You can give your kids access to things like high places in the home. You can wrestle and play fight with them. You can have one of those little slippery dips that you can have in the house, and they can start to navigate ladders and slides. You can let them climb up onto the dining table and dance on the dining table and discover where the edges are. You can allow them, if you're in let's say a townhouse complex, you can allow them to walk down to the letterbox to get the mail alone. And you might walk 20 meters behind them, and they'll probably appreciate that, quite honestly. And when they get really close to the road, you might only be 3 meters behind them. But what you're doing here is you're giving them these opportunities for independence or exploration or skill development. You're letting them have these opportunities that harness risk in safe ways. And whenever you can, you're getting away from your limited space, meeting up with other people and putting them into an area where there's this open-ended possibility again.
What I'm really loving is that you're essentially making these young children feel like they're part of the team. They're doing something that they see us do, and we're letting them do it. And it seems so simple, but no, don't do that. We're so conditioned to not letting those things happen. One thing that I did catch myself doing multiple times over the weekend is when my daughter and my son play and it's rough and tumble and my son's won, I immediately jump in to stop because I'm so worried about his neck getting hurt or something like that. I mean, what's your advice on sibling play?
So long as they're being nice to each other, I think you let them go for it. And even if they're not, I think you let them go for it until somebody's genuine. Like as a parent, knowing when to step in and knowing when to step out, probably the two biggest challenges you've got, right? And the wisest parents know the difference between the two. Hang back until you really have to intervene and maybe wait another 1 or 2 seconds before you intervene anyway, because they might figure it out. As they learn to do that, you get powerful results. Here's what you're trying to avoid. You're trying to avoid any bullying. You're trying to avoid any obvious power imbalances where a child is being treated poorly by their sibling and it's repetitive, it's ongoing. But typically they do figure it out, and we worry about this too much. I'm more worried about it as they get older and they start to say horrible things, or they start to really undermine each other. With little kids, so long as they're not hurting each other, they're fine. Of course, if you've got an 18-month-old and the 4-year-old's sitting on them or pulling their hair or stomping on them, I mean, I've seen all those things happen, then you intervene. And at that point, you do whatever you have to do. Like you drop your shoulder, you crash tackle them, you sit on them. No, I'm just kidding you. You lift them off. You lift them off and you separate them. But you don't worry about going too hard because they're not gonna get it anyway. Like cognitively, they're not gonna get it. So you separate them. You give them a hug, you say, let's figure this out. How can we do this better? You listen to what their grievance is, and then you move on.
I think there's so much for parents to think about, and there are so many times when I was reflecting on my parenting that it's been such a fascinating conversation that for me it comes back to someone once said to me that parenting is actually about the art of letting go, of knowing when to let go, and of making sure that you're ready for when
you're a life lesson for all of us.
When you're for when you need to let go, you're making sure that you've prepared your child. And I guess all parents will judge the risk that they feel comfortable having. But I think there's definitely food for thought in so much that you've put forward, and I might need to let my kids have a little bit more leeway at times. I think.
Definitely. Now, Justin, this is the question that we ask every guest on this podcast. Knowing all that you know, you're an expert in your field. What is the one thing that you just wish parents knew?
Okay, so I'm going to offer 2 things because I can never just do one.
No, that's cool.
I want to share something about risky play, and then I want to share my true answer to the question. Mm-hmm. So we live in an increasingly sanitized and controlled world. And on this particular topic, I think the greatest risk might be not taking any risks at all. We really need to facilitate our children's access to boundary pushing. It's good for them. In terms of the broader question and parenting more generally, for me, the most valuable thing that any parent can learn is the three most important words that you can say to your child. And those words, let me ask either of you, Kate or Amelia, what do you imagine that the three most important words that we could say to our child might be?
I love you.
Everyone says that.
Yeah. That's wrong?
No.
I'm a real type A here, Justin.
and I love asking just so I can say no, it's not right. It's the three words that come next. See, our children are going to fight with their siblings. They're going to have tantrums and dummy spits. They're going to slam doors. They're going to, as they get older, start to push even more buttons than they're already pushing as toddlers and preschoolers. And when they deserve our love the least, and I use the word deserve in inverted commas because they always deserve our love. But at the times where we're less inclined to give them that love, that's the time that they need it the very most. And when we have conflict and tension and challenge with our children, to me, the most important words are not I love you, but I love you no matter what. I love you no matter what. When our children hear that unconditionality, when our children know that if there's ever a problem, our love is bigger than that problem. When our children understand that there is nothing that could ever be an impediment to our complete, total devotion and love to them, they are much more likely to be resilient.
We're getting a bit teary.
They just do better. I love you no matter what is what I wish every parent could say to their child every day, but especially on those days where things are upside down and harebrained and crazy.
That is an amazing answer, and we're so grateful that you shared not just that, but all of your tips with us. I know you've got two mothers here who will be saying, I love you no matter what tonight, and we hope that you've got lots and lots of listeners who say that too. So thank you so much for joining us today. Dr. Justin Coulson, what an amazing conversation.
Truly, I could talk to you for 10 more hours, Justin. This has just been fantastic.
So much fun.
Yeah, we're very grateful for your time and some really great takeaways there as well. Kate, there is so much from that chat that I just found incredibly useful, but also just a million aha moments, don't you think?
I think so. There were some moments where we were talking about risky play and I feared we were getting into risky podcasting.
Yeah.
Obviously parents will take responsibility and make judgments about this, but it was a fascinating conversation. And I must say, I, as a parent, am really guilty of overprotecting my children sometimes. And I really took a lot out of it about what impact that's having on them and ways that by them achieving things, it builds their confidence. Of course it does. It makes perfect sense. And I will try and loosen the grip a little bit on my own kids. What were your thoughts?
It was the real thing of just you need to loosen up a bit, You need to just take a step back, and how he gave in that example of to the letterbox, walking to the letterbox and, you walk behind, but you don't need to be there and doing it. And we're just so used to, we're in a rush. We're doing, come here, I'll do it. We're just so used to that. And our kids want to be part of our team, and that means doing stuff that makes them part of their team. I think unpacking that whole why we jump in, I think, you care about your kids. You don't want them to be hurt. You don't want to also be the parent that, look at them, they just let their kids run wild, But I guess what he's saying is there's a balancing act there, and don't jump in at the first instance.
And there's some things that our kids need us to protect them from, and there's some that they need to learn what their own capabilities are.
And doing is learning.
Yeah,
not just
amazing
saying.
conversation.
Yeah. We'll, of course, obviously put some of the resources that Justin might have mentioned in our show notes that you'll be able to find, and how you can connect with him and find out a bit more about what he does as well.
And just thanks once again to Justin Coulson, and we'll, of course, see you next time for Words Grow Minds. Thanks for listening to the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast. We love hearing from you, so please subscribe, review and comment on the podcast. And for plenty of ideas to support your child's development, go to wordsgrowminds.org.au and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Your words will grow their mind.